Hi friends, it's Megan. Welcome back to my channel. And today I'm going to be talking about my July books I've read. So this is my monthly wrap-up that I do every month, and this is for July, clearly. This month was the month of the Book Junkie trials and also the month of the reading rush. Now, I did not complete my Book Junkie trials quest. I finished the path, but I did not complete the Bookie Grail. And then for the reading rush, I read 6 out of 7 books, but I also threw in a few other books in there, so let's see how that went. So the first book I read was Bleeding Violet by Reeves, and this was much different than I expected. It was my prompt for the Orc Grove, or a book that is gruesome, gory, or gritty. And this tells the story of Hannah, who all she wants to do is be loved by her family. She has a mental disorder that causes her to act certain ways, and so she ends up going to the town where her mom lives. Her mom actually kind of disowned her, not disowned, but like left her alone with her father as a child and just took off. So she tracked down her mom and she's trying to live with her now, and this town is just not what it seems. It included magic, it included monsters, and it was definitely gory. So it was a lot of fun. I liked it a lot more than I ever expected to, and yeah, it was just a lot of fun, so I gave it 4 stars. The next book I read is Dengeki Daisy Volume 2, and I love this little series. It tells the story of a girl whose brother died, and her brother left her with a cell phone with one contact that gave her a relationship that she could contact in times where she was feeling just not quite 100%, and she just wanted someone to reach out to. And it's her story about finding out who that is and also trying to figure out her feelings for this guy. I ended up giving this 5 stars because I just really enjoyed this little manga series. The next book I finished is The Sea of Monsters by Riordan. This is the second book in the Percy Jackson and the Olympians series. I think it's the Camp Half-Blood total series, but the Percy and the Olympians arc of that series. So this, of course, I'm not gonna go into what it is or else it'll give away what happened, but the overall story is that this tells the story of Percy Jackson, who is the son of a god. He's half mortal, half god, and his adventures in that. And I ended up giving this 4 stars. I didn't like it as much as I did the Lightning Thief, but it is still a really good, enjoyable book. The next book I read is Dengeki Daisy Volume 3, and it's pretty much the same that I said about the other one. I'm really enjoying this series, and I gave it 5 stars. The next book I read is Illuminae, or the Illuminae Files, by Amie Kaufman and Kristoff. This is a sci-fi story about these 2 teenagers whose home was attacked, and it tells their communications from 2 separate ships, and it's all in like emails and confidential files and texts, and there's an AI, and it's super interesting. I read it as an audiobook, but I read the physical book along with the audiobook, and if you're gonna read that, I definitely recommend doing it that way because you're gonna experience a lot more reading the audiobook, but there's some things that the audiobook doesn't have that the text does, so I definitely recommend reading them together. I give this 5 out of 5 stars, and I can't wait to pick up the sequel. I've heard it focuses on other characters, but our main characters in this book do feature in Gemini. The next book I finished is Deep Cosmos by Project Kyle. I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. This is a story about a space doctor who's out to save the universe, and he kind of gathers some people along the way. There's a girl named Sophie and a man named Henry, and I just really loved these characters. The only downfall of this was there was a lot of times that the dialogue took me out of the text, but other than that, it was a really, really great story, and I can't wait to read the sequel. It's also a really good representation of autism if you're looking for that kind of rep in books. And the next book I read is my audiobook for Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, which is my favorite book in the Harry Potter series, and this was incredible. I loved it, and I really don't have anything else to say about it because everyone knows what this is, and yeah, 5 stars. Go Harry Potter. The next book I finished was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, and this tells the story of Jude and her two sisters, and they are forcefully taken to this fairy world and forced to live in this world from childhood to present day, and it's incredible, and the world building is wonderful, and the story is great, but the characters suck. Like, they're horrible people, and it's hilarious to think of sometimes the romance, or the suspected romance, the building romance, I'm not really a fan of, but other than that, it's pretty good. So the initial reaction to the ending made me give it 5 stars, but after like thinking about it a little bit, I think I'm going to give it a 4 or 4.5 stars, just because overall it wasn't my favorite, and I'm trying to reserve that 5-star for my favorite books. The next book I finished was the audiobook for To All the Boys I Loved Before, and this is one of my favorite contemporaries now. So cute, so adorable. It's definitely immature at times, but it's something I really would have loved in high school. I already know that. But overall, I just really enjoyed it, and I feel like giving it 5 stars, so I'm giving it 5 stars. And if you don't know, this tells the story of Laura Jean, who kind of keeps everything, and she wrote these letters to boys that she has loved before as a goodbye letter to get rid of her feelings, and somehow they are given out to all of the boys that they were intended for, and she is forced to deal with the repercussions of that. Personally, I think the romance was better developed in the movie than in the book, but the book was better overall, just for the family aspects and the friendship aspects and just her personality in general. I really enjoyed. The next book I finished was The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis, and this took a much different angle than I expected. It tells the story of what it means to be female and the hardships of being female through the perspective of 3 different teenagers. One is Alex, and she is the sister of a girl who was brutally raped and murdered, and then there is PK, who is the preacher's kid, which is what PK stands for, and she is not necessarily the poster child for preacher's kid. And then we have Jack, who is the star athlete of the high school, but he develops a crush on Alex, and these 3 are working together through some of Alex's hardships with her sister being gone, and societal norms that shouldn't be norms, and just what it means to be female. So it was a really great book, and I really enjoyed how they played everything out. There are definitely some heavy trigger warnings, so be cautious if you do choose to read this. But other than that, I gave it 4 stars. And next, I finished Ouran High School Host Club Volume 3. This is not my favorite manga series. It's very much short stories, and I like a continued story if I'm going to be reading a series, and this just feels like a bunch of like short little episodes rather than a continuous series. So I'm reading it because I do enjoy the characters, and I'm trying to keep up. I'm not really sure what's happening half the time because they are short stories, and sometimes mangas are harder to get into with the stories. Other than that, I gave it 3 stars. And then I also read the Dragon Ball Volumes 4 through 6 collection, and I gave each one a different rating. Volume 4, I gave 5 stars. Volume 5 and 6, I gave 4 stars. Volume 4 was really fun. It was the battle between the strongest in the heavens, and I really enjoy reading the battle scenes because it reminds me of pro wrestling, and it's just really amusing to watch. But volumes 5 and 6 were a little bit more challenging to get through because it felt a little bit repetitive to the first 3 volumes. So yeah, but otherwise I'm really enjoying reading the series and finding out more about Dragon Ball, and it's easier to catch on to a lot of references that Anthony makes now. And yeah, I'm just enjoying this journey into Dragon Ball, and I cannot wait for Goku to be older because I think it's gonna get a lot more interesting then. So that was what I read in July. That was 14 books, and yeah, I didn't finish my 2 readathons, but I think I did pretty well in them, so I'm proud. And that's all for today, so thank you guys so much for watching. I will check in with you in my next video. Bye!